So good evening and welcome everybody to the City of Lake Forest Park City Council regular meeting for July 9th, I believe, here. Evening and welcome everyone. I will start with asking our friend Councilmember Rosenow to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, council members. Please be seated. Thank you, sir. I'd entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
I'd like to move adoption of the agenda.
For your second. Been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, concerns, campfire songs, anything else? Hearing none, it's adopted by unanimous consent. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we're moving on to public comments. Welcome, everybody who's here. My public comment sheet. Thank you, Chief. I have about 14 minutes of introductions I have to read here. The council will not be accepting online public comments. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time limit. This is an opportunity for the public to address the city council on any item within its purview or control. Oral public comments are only accepted in person to ensure the orderly conduct of the meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Council members may not respond during public comments, but may ask staff to follow up if appropriate. Public comments may not be used to promote or oppose candidates for public office or ballot measures. The mayor or presiding officer may interrupt comments that violate these instructions, are unrelated to council's purview or control, or otherwise hinder the orderly conduct of the meeting. With that aside, we get to the fun part and actually get to hear from people. So we're going to start with Barry Hansen. Please join us at the podium, Barry. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, what I have for you tonight is thank you and to bring something of general interest to your attention. My name is Barry Hansen. I've owned a house in Lake Forest Park for the last 10 years. It's the same house that my parents bought in 1973. Been around for a while. But that's just a drop in the bucket. My great-grandfather settled in Shoreline in 1901. My dad grew up in Shoreline and so forth. Anyway, the thank you is I want to thank the Lake Forest Park City Council for supporting the Shoreline Historical Museum. It's a tremendous benefit for us and we appreciate it very much. Guess I'm here not as a representative, but in my private capacity, because what I want to let you know is that we have just released a new book from the Shoreline Historical Museum. It's called, cleverly named, Shoreline, Washington, and it's the history of the city of Shoreline from the start of the ice sheets that came down here until the city incorporated around 1995. You can buy them either in the office or through Amazon, or you don't even have to buy the book. It's free online. We have a giant PDF on the shorelinehistoricalmuseum.org website. Great place to leaf through it. And the advantage in there, if you leaf through the PDF, is that many of the images are linked to an online copy of the image. So if you find something of interest, like a picture that shows environmental degradation, you can find or follow the link to that picture online and get a collection of all the pictures that are tagged with, say, environmental degradation or whatever you want. I can pass around a copy either to the city if you want to leaf through it, or I think I'll just start with the audience if anyone's interested. With a disclaimer, this is not Shoreline. The Historical Museum service area includes Lake Forest Park, but the book only covers the city limits. But I think everybody here knows people that live in Shoreline and have some connection in history with them. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Barry. That's big shout out for Barbara Bender's book, Growing Up in Lake Forest Park as well, which unfortunately is out of print, but worth a read. There are still copies available out there. Next, we're going to have Connie Holloway talking about Perkins Way. Welcome, Connie. Thank you for your email comments as well.
Timer, great. Hi, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Connie Holloway. I'm a Lake Forest Park resident and I bike. Um, as you know, there's been discussion about Perkins Way. As you all know, it's on the maps in under transportation in the Lake Forest Park website. Perkins Way links the interurban to the west with Burt Gilman, Lake Sammamish to the east, and we are a connector. That is the bike connector. Lots of bikers use that road. This is the boundary between Shoreline and Lake Forest Park. And what I have noticed when I'm biking down Perkins Way is they have stencils on the road. Shoreline's put stencils, but when you get to Lake Forest Park, there are no stencils. I don't think this is a problem so much coming down Perkins Way. The bikes are going pretty fast coming down. There's a lots of bikers. I use Perkins Way to get to light rail and also to the interurban, but coming down, bikes are going pretty fast, cars are going pretty fast, but going up is a different story. When you turn off of 178th and go up Perkins Way, it's very steep. The bicyclists are in first gear, at least I'm in first gear, going very slowly, working pretty hard. Cars are really impatient. They do not, they don't like the slow bikers, and so they'll roar around us. In addition, there's 4 blind corners on that. I always am hoping that cars that come up behind me very quickly have good brakes because they cannot see me. In addition, there's no shoulder. And now the blackberry bushes at this time of year are growing into the lane. So I'm pretty far out into the lane. And I just feel that if Lake Forest Park, as a cost-effective way of making that Perkins Way more safe for bikes, could maybe add some stencils, if not in both directions, at least at the start of Perkins Way going up, just to give drivers heads up that there might be bikers in the road. So, yeah. I did look up the rules. I had a friend who told me that this means by law that the cars have to allow bikes to ride in the middle of the lane, but I looked it up. I couldn't find it anywhere in Washington state law. But I do think it's a good visual signal, no matter what. Since I have a few more minutes, a few other things. Bikes are allowed to treat stop sign as yield signs. So if you see a bike not coming to a stop sign and not stopping all the way, we're allowed to do that. I just want people to know because I want to be a good bike. Pierce County and Spokane County have helmet laws. Washington State does not, but there are counties that do create helmet laws.
We do here.
Washington State cars must move into the opposite lane and give bikes 3 feet of distance when passing by Washington State law. Oh, I'm done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Connie. It's important for everybody to be safe. That is one of 2 of our connectors to the interurban trail, by the way, that were designated in the early 2000s, I believe. That's all I have who signed up for public comment tonight. Is there anyone else in the council chambers that would like to make public comment at this time? We're reasonably friendly up here. I'm ornery. They're nicer than no? Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. Thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful comments. Okay, and now we're moving on to proclamation for our beloved principal, Aimee Minor. Whereas Aimee Minor was raised in Lake Forest Park, LFP, and attended Lake Forest Park Elementary School, Kellogg Middle School, and Shorecrest High School, and now makes her home here with her husband and 2 children. And whereas in 2000, Aimee returned to Shoreline School District as a teacher, and in 2009 was appointed as the principal of the Lake Forest Park Elementary. Whereas during her 17-year tenure as the principal of LFP Elementary, she created a culture and climate where staff wanted to work and where students felt safe, cared for, and valued. And whereas in 2009, Aimee introduced the Roots of Empathy program, which pairs a family with an infant with elementary classrooms to help school children develop empathy. This program has since been adopted across the entire Shoreline School District, and whereas she empowered staff and teachers to learn about the science of reading and teach foundational reading skills, which improves student achievement in reading, and whereas under her leadership, LFP Elementary won the National Distinguished School Award in 2013, was a Washington State recognized school in the 2023 and 24 school year for growth for students who are Hispanic, and was ranked as one of the best schools in Washington in 2025 by US News and World Report. And whereas Aimee Minor was awarded the Shoreline School District Administrator of the Year in 2017 and 2023. And whereas Aimee is a staunch supporter of partnering with community agencies and organizations, including Lake Forest Park Police Department, LFP Rotary, and the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation. Now, therefore, the mayor and city council of the city of Lake Forest Park do hereby recognize and thank Aimee Minor for her years of service to the community. Encourage all students, families, and residents to join us in wishing her all the best for her next chapter as she continues to lead, teach, and encourage the next generation. Congratulations, Aimee.
Yay, Aimee.
Would you like to say a couple of words, Aimee?
First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you, Mayor French and the City Council for that recognition. And as educators, it's very special to get recognized in that way. So thank you. And one of the best parts, I would say, being part of this community is the partnerships that we've had. And the LFP police are daily at LFP greeting students. They're doing Shop with a Cop for students, giving them gifts during the holidays. And the LFP Rotary gives us market bucks so that our families can get food on the weekends and provides grants. The Stewardship Foundation helps us raise salmon and put them into our local streams. So I'm just very grateful for all the partnerships, and having grown up here, it's wonderful to continue to be able to serve in that way. And I'll still be around because I still live here with my family, my daughter Allie, my son Andrew, and my husband Paul. So you will see us at the markets and around the neighborhood. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Aimee.
We do have a proclamation for you. If you'd like to come up and take a picture with the council, you'd be welcome to do that. If you like with your family too, please bring them up. It's a special. Right in the front. Right in the front. Here we go. Yep.
Yeah, we'll try to bunch up, yeah.
You staying down there or?
Really?
Somehow. Yep. You have somebody taking a photo? Can you just screenshot?
No, Tracy, you were fine. Okay. Sure.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Hey, sure, I'm gonna just hand that to you. So we have the files. Okay, we are moving on now to presentations. 2027, 2028 budget, biennial budget, community partner presentations. Tonight we have three friends with us: ShoreLake Arts, Senior Center, and Hangtime from the City of Shoreline. And we've asked folks to limit it to a 10-minute presentation plus council questions. And we're going to start off with our friend Laura James. Welcome, Laura.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share with you the progress and an update of what we have done 2025 and so far in 2026. I am Laura James, the Executive Director of ShoreLake Arts, and this is my second time getting to present to you all. And we were under very different circumstances that time, so this is a happy report. Let me try the clicker. And I do want to do a shout out that our board president is in the office, is in the room as well, Armand Micheline, who is also an LFP resident. I am a Shoreline resident. Our board has changed slightly. Tracy Furutani is back in VP role. which we're very happy to say, and promoted from board member to VP. Treasurer is Eric Friedley, and then our secretary is still Cindy McCrae. We are still a staff of 1.5, but that does not keep us from doing cool things. In 2025, we had 7,000 attendees at our events. These are over 40 events that we record. We always do things on the side and with communities whenever asked, but these are our proper events. We were able to add 3 new events this year, last year, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. 97, almost 98% of those that come to our events, we have made it free of charge. So it is our goal. I don't think we'll ever hit 100, but we will continue to increase. And as we add things, we will continue to write for grants and look for donations and sponsorships to keep this number going as high as we possibly can. We were able, last time we spoke, we were heavily in debt, and y'all took a huge leap of faith to support us in a very significant way. And I am very grateful for that. That allowed us to continue. And even with a staff of 1.5, it gave us the motivation and the boost in morale to say, okay, well, Lake Forest Park is behind us, so let's just keep going. And I will say that when we added a new event that's really cool in 2026, it seemed like the perfect bookend to one of our other events here at Animal Acres. So I am very pleased to say that we are 100% out of debt, and we have recouped, and our emergency fund is full. I did not rob a bank. I will say that Doors Open has been very significant, and the grant money that we have received has helped us tremendously as well. So I do want to clear up, because we moved out of town center, I wanted to give a progress update of our new location in downtown Ridgecrest, a before and after picture. So we are in the heart of downtown Ridgecrest, and we are doing an artist all call to refill the gallery. It is a multi-function space of gallery. It's a business mullet. It's a gallery, it's office space, and a classroom in the back. So business and party. Please come by and visit anytime. So new in 2025, and where's my timer? Okay, new in 2025, we did a military veterans art show. We were approached by the head of this organization, Operation Art to Heal. These are military folks that are working through PTSD and MST and through their art. So we were more than happy to do that. And I share with you this photo because the guy in the black and khaki shorts, he's the artist. The paintings behind him, he did in college. His kid is to the right, just for how many years have passed. Nobody had ever bought his artwork. There were actually 5 in the series, and the guy and woman to the left bought them all at that. So it was really cool to be able to honor these vets and then also help them sell their artwork. We are also now doing art classes at the Senior Center. We're partnering here with Emily, yes, and her team, and we're very happy, and they're very popular. We wanted to know what what is the potential there, and we held a watercolor class, which is the favorite, and we had over 20 folks, which is the most we ever had in one of these classrooms, and it's hard to find a classroom that fits that many. So good things are happening. We're also continuing to do our art shows in businesses. So we'll be happy to do that in any business and LFP. Right now we're doing it with RPH, Ridgecrest Public House. And then also a business in Edmonds had reached out as one of their artists had canceled last minute. We still do the other events, Lantern Festival. We had we're so proud of this. We had over 450 attendees this year. We have moved locations to Shoreline College so that we outgrew our other space, and we still have the same famous lion dance. So please visit, and thank you to those that were able to come. Our 6x6 show will happen later in the year as well. We've also started an outdoor market in the block that we currently are in downtown Ridgecrest. We had almost 2,000 folks attend that, and that has inspired us to start art walks this summer. So July, August, and September, we will give artists another opportunity. We also celebrated our 10th anniversary for our Short Film Fest. Tracy was our film festival director, and we had over, let me see, Film Fest, we had over 22 submissions. It narrowed it down to 12, and we had almost 200 attendees, which is the highest we've had. So again, thank you, because you are a big part of why we've been able to continue. And then summer camp is happening as well. And then we try to do hands-on art wherever we can. We're partnering with PTAs. We were part of STEM night, and so happy about that. 61 people came by the booth and got to do some really cool art. We also are now doing the musicians and artists for the Secret Garden Tour, which is pretty cool. And we've been participants since the founding of it, but I'm honored to now be able to participate even more. And then also we at Third Place Commons, we did the reintroduction of the chess set. So that was fun. And we had a hands-on art activity that brought in over 50 folks to participate. So this is the cool thing that we introduced in 2026. It's an all-teen band showcase. So everybody had to be under 21 at the time of the concert to be able to apply for this. And we selected 4 very awesome teen bands, and it's called Listen Here, because I thought it would be a really cool flip on why grown-ups are always telling kids, listen here, listen up, listen to me. So I thought this would be a really cool flip. No, you listen to us. We've got something to say. And they had really cool things to say. We've invited Last Leaf back. They're doing As You Like It on August 8th. And then our favorite Battle of the Bands. And thank you very much. We were able to bring that back and remove admission. So it is also a free event. And we had over 400 people attend, which is 100 more than the year before that we did it. So here's a little recap of Listen Here and the bands. And my favorite part, we also invited teen artists to come and have a booth. So this is a Shorecrest student that took us up on that offer. And we also offered a painting opportunity to express themselves as they're listening to cool music. And my favorite part of this was watching all the bands fan over each other and say, I saw you on YouTube. It's so cool to actually meet you in person. All right. New next school year, we're partnering with the Shoreline Sister City Association and building a mobile museum. Shoreline Sister City is Akropong, Ghana, and we have had some items donated, and we are going to build a museum that will travel to all the schools, every school that would like it. And this will be part visual, part hands-on, and we hope to partner with PTAs for their multicultural nights to also implement dance and music. And then an aside, I am the president of the Shoreline Sister City Association, which I'm very proud to say. Edible books. We already have the date for 2027 lined up, January 23rd, mark your calendars. And I will say this year was record-breaking, where we had 31 submissions and 392 attendees. So we basically will need to redesign how we do it next year so that there's more space. I think I flipped through it too fast, but for Listen Here, I think I might have a couple more minutes. I do want to do a shout out. There we go. A shout out to Corey Matson over here, who is my primary liaison with the city. She makes everything so effortless. Like seriously, it's so easy. And I could call at the last minute if something goes wrong. And I'm like, Corey, is cool, calm as a cucumber, and we work it out. Omar was also there to help with the showmobile. And so he was there on the grounds the whole time. But really, anytime we have an event, the entire public works maintenance crew has been awesome. And I'm so appreciative. Our police have also been awesome for these things. So I will leave it with that. I know this is a budget. You're looking at the budget. I will say I was able to make good use of the amount and the increase that you gave us last time. I feel comfortable being able to say we do not ask for anything additional this year or in this next 2 years. Thank you very much. It really did help us.
Thank you, Ms. James. Appreciate that. Colleagues, questions for Ms. James? On the dais or, yes, Deputy Mayor Furtani.
Well, thank you for your presentation, Executive Director. And I'm wondering, there's been talk about more permanent home for the ShoreLake Arts group, and in fact partnering with basically county, state, that kind of thing. How are those plans coming?
So we hired a consultant to go to the major sources of funding that we were thinking we would need to make that happen. The sad side of it is that they are asking too much for the land that we were looking for, that the results were basically you would not be able to raise, even if you bought the land to then develop, would be too high at this point in time for where we are. So I wouldn't say the dream is dead, but I think it is deferred. And so now we're really going to focus on where we are right now and expand our programming and reach back into schools as much as we can and reach kids that way. So once we have this solid programming and we can expand on our classes and all of that, but right now we're going to stay put.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. Council members, any other questions for Ms. James? Down the dais. Want to check in with Councilmember Saunders. Do you have any questions? Okay.
No.
Right. Thank you very much for your time, Laura.
Thank you very
Really
much.
appreciate all you
Really
do.
appreciate
The arts are so important to us all. Thank you. With that, we're moving on to Emily Jones, the director of the Shoreline Senior Center. Welcome, Emily. Sure. Thank you.
There we go. All right. Hi, my name is Emily Jones, and I haven't had the opportunity to meet all of you or present yet. I will have been at the center 2 years in this September. So thank you for having me. I will, I guess, go ahead and get started. I talk quickly when I'm nervous. Warning you now. All right. So the picture on the main screen here is just one of our fitness classes, one of 60 plus that we have every week. So we did it. Oh, look that. Welcome to the center. I have a fun fact. Our oldest member also happens to be a hula dancer, and she's 104. So how cool is that? We keep people alive. No, anyway. The senior center has a stop for that mobile museum, by the way. Yes, we want that. Okay. So for those of you who may not be of the audience that would typically come to the senior center, I just decided to show you just an example of the kinds of activities that we offer. I'm not going to read them all out for you, and I'm going to hand out this later so you can check it out for real. But we are based on a wellness model to keep older adults active and engaged in their community. And so this is just a sampling of the kinds of classes that we offer. Some are no cost and others are at very low cost. And then if you didn't already know, every week we have students from Bastyr come and they provide naturopathic appointments for people, and we keep, again, the price very low. And then we also, due to funding, are able to offer scholarship appointments or, no fee for those, because we never want the cost of something to be a barrier to service. While we're very excited for Echo, our foot care specialist has been with us for 25 years, but she is retiring at the end of this month. And we are exploring other options on how to continue to offer that at a price that makes sense for our clients, but that also makes sense for the center. So it's just currently on pause. We also, thank you to the city of Shoreline, have been conducting a pilot project of sorts. We have a mental health counselor who works with low-income seniors who are also Shoreline residents. And so that has been just a fantastic addition to what we're able to provide. And she also does quarterly presentations that are open to the public. Anybody can attend, as well as like group counseling or group discussion sessions as well. So, or those are for Shoreline residents, but we're trying to continue to expand because there's just there isn't enough mental health support for older adults. And if you aren't already aware, we are in the silver tsunami. There are now more people 65 and over in the United States than there are 13 and under, and we are woefully unprepared to support that next generation of older adults. So everything that we can do, just supports our aging population. And then we also currently offer, we call it the Mammo van, but we have the Fred Hutch mammogram van, comes once a quarter as well. And for people who cannot easily get to a hospital or some sort of location, but they can get to the senior center. So it's a wonderful resource. Did I do it? Oh, there we go. And we have other really cool stuff. So we do have veterans benefits advising. And also thanks to you guys, we were now able to expand our social worker assistance to residents of Lake Forest Park as well. Thank you so much for that, because as you know, they need it, and there aren't currently any resources over here that they are able to take advantage of in terms of finding, if they need to find another place to live or they need access to food, that kind of thing. Our social worker is able to assist them. We actually, this year, we started offering notary services. We have insanely popular one-on-one tech support. It's booked out through the end of the summer already. And then we have also begun a weekly grocery giveaway. And then we also have an informal food pantry. No barriers, no questions asked. If you need food, we will make sure that you go home with food. And then also, if you just aren't familiar with community dining, that is a program that we contract with through Sound Generations. And it sounds awful that we're excited about this, but we almost always run out of food at least once a week because of just the demand and people knowing that we're there. And our chef is so incredibly generous. People know to bring a container because then they will have another hot, nutritious meal to eat later in the day. But you should come check it out sometime. I mean, come have lunch on me. I'll pay for you. So come check us out. So that's a very large part of what we do in terms of providing socialization as well as nutrition for our older adults in the community. And then, oh my, we are really kind of cranking it up in terms of what we are offering in addition to all of our wellness activities and programs. Thanks to ShoreLake Arts, we have an insanely awesome arts lineup these days. Half the time I wish that I could join them, but I can't. But then we also have, basically we meet the needs of what our people are looking for. And so we had a wonderful opportunity to partner with the Chinese Information Service Center, also known as CISC. They acknowledged, or they recognized that there was a gap in this area, that there are thousands of seniors who speak Chinese and there is nowhere for them to go and to socialize. And so we now have every Wednesday, they come in from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and it just continues to grow. They they play the classical instruments, but then they also just join other activities, and it just keeps growing. They performed for Lunar New Year, and it's just another way to introduce cultural differences and create new conversations in the center as well. And then we're, of course, incredibly grateful for CMAR. They have been providing incredibly robust programming one full day a week as well. And so because of that, more of our kitchen volunteers are now learning to speak Spanish because they want to be able to welcome them when they come join us for lunch. Just a fun side note. Okay. And then I'm just giving an overview because not everyone, you'll see in the statistics, we get some of Lake Forest Park residents, but we don't get all of you. So or more of you rather. So this is why I'm emphasizing all of our activities. We also do fun stuff. Yes, bingo and trivia, they might help us raise funds for the center, but they're also incredibly fun. And the trivia night is actually hosted by 2 Jeopardy champions. And then if you've never experienced the experience that is Sylvia of Stay for More, you got to come to one of our rainbow bingos because she is a hoot. And we've actually oversold bingo 3 times so far this year. We're supposed to stop at 140 and we had 150. On here that cares. Okay, good. All right, that doesn't matter. All right, so and then this is just a very teeny tiny sample of the kinds of special events and presentations that we do in addition to our regular lineup of classes and activities. So I have to say, I really love the Bonjour, French Fun with the Kids of North Seattle French School. We have another one coming up tomorrow that I didn't even think to add. It's science experiments with kids as well. So it's just, we're looking for different ways to engage with the community so that, you know, children who are oftentimes no one listens to them, right? And older adults, oftentimes nobody listens to them. Get them together, and guess what? They can't stop talking and listening to each other. So we're trying to do a greater focus on intergenerational connections and activities. And then I love how we always use the by the numbers, because when you use yours, and I got to come up with a better term. So I actually, these are how we track progress with you guys in terms of our funding from you. And I'm recognizing that nobody probably wants to read numbers, but we'll just look at them real quick in public anyway. So we surpassed all of our goals. However, I do feel like we can continue to do better in terms of the recreational programming. One thing that is not reflected in this is that we had a fantastic collaboration with Third Place Commons last year. We brought in a speaker. He talked about the architecture and the history of the like ideal communities that Lake Forest Park once was, and we had 150 people attend. So I'm really looking forward. Forgive me, the name of the new facility that you're going to put on the waterfront?
Doesn't have a name.
Doesn't have, yeah.
All right.
Lakefront Park.
Lakefront Park, I like it. Yeah. I would love to be able to provide, or, you know, for us to collaborate and find ways to, because again, as you know, transportation between the two cities, you know, like Hyde Shuttle won't do it. Access won't, you know, I mean, there just isn't a way for residents here to get over there. And so I would love to be able to bring more things over here. And then we did a partial, well, I guess because we're only halfway through, but just to see where we are in terms of meeting our goals for this year. And I did have a note on there, and this is where we're going to talk about some sticky stuff. As you may or may not be aware, the Sound Generations Board of Directors determined at the end of last year that they would like the remaining senior centers under their umbrella to separate. So there were 3 of us remaining. And my board said, we're going to take you up on that. So this year has been a very, very big year of transition. We officially left the payroll and left more or less Sound Generations in April. However, there are still some sticking points as we continue the separation. And one, which is kind of minor, but while we were transitioning from our one database to our new one, there was 3 weeks of data that are not in the new database. So I bet we did better the second quarter, but it's not going to be reflected there. So please don't hold it against me. But I would like to point out that we're definitely continuing to get more people from Lake Forest Park taking advantage of the social worker. And then, so, oh, I guess I talked about it here. There we go. So yeah, we left Sound Generations. But I don't want you to think we're continuing our relationship in terms of providing community dining. We are also a satellite location for Meals on Wheels. Those things will not change. Obviously, Hyde Shuttle will continue to serve the area and that kind of thing. We are just no longer under their umbrella. And one of the things that we learned in this is that we are not a nonprofit without being under their umbrella. We're working on that. However, unfortunately, the IRS is moving at a different pace under this administration. So the average turnaround is 10 to 12 months to receive our determination letter, which means that for the next 10 to 12 months, we cannot pursue any kind of grants, any kind of foundations, donations. You know, people want write-offs. They want to be able to, you know, donate from their, you know, donor advised funds or their qualified charitable contribution, all of that stuff. And so we're going to see a drop in terms of that. But I have been working with our current funders, and so far everyone has agreed to continue funding us despite us not being a nonprofit at the time, because our business has not changed. It's literally a piece of paper. I know it's not, but it is. And so we are acting as if, and apparently we're allowed to do that. So we're allowed to act as if. So we're just going to keep on trucking forward. And then, as I mentioned before, our foot care specialist is retiring. And so there's over 400 older adults out there right now looking for somebody to help take care of their feet, and we're doing everything that we can to fix that problem. It's just not as there just aren't enough foot care specialists. Like, shocker, yeah. So we're working on it. But those are the challenges that we have been facing. However, I will say that we are in a good position financially for now, very much thanks to your support, and as well as being able to help support our social worker, which that there's always going to be a need for that. And then I talk before I get to the slide. There we go. So look at that. I think I've actually already said all of this. Oops. But the one thing that I wanted to thank you for, because I know that I've spoken to some of you about this. Right now, when people call us, we say, thank you for calling the Shoreline Lake Forest Park Senior Activity Center. That's 7 words. How may I help you? And then by the time we get to the how may I help you, people are like, wait a minute, you're in Lake Forest Park? Where's your Lake Forest Park location? I thought I was calling Shoreline. So there's just been an ever increasing confusion, and sometimes fighting or arguing about why we have such a long name and why there are so many things in the name. Long story short, we're going to go back to Shoreline Senior Center. And we hope that you still will love us and want to join us. We are also going to be celebrating our independence, and we're going to have a ribbon cutting, and it's going to be awesome. And it just means that we're able to more effectively support the older adults of Shoreline and Lake Forest Park without the additional overhead of the administrative costs associated with our previous parent organization. So thank you for allowing us to be able to do that. And then look at that, come visit. I'm there every day. Thank you so much for your time. And I think there we go. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Do you have questions, colleagues? Council members, any questions for Ms. Jones? Yes, Deputy Mayor Furtado. Oh, Councilmember Muhlenberg.
I'm curious why in Q1 of each year, there's a surge in Lake Forest Park residents touched in the numbers.
It's because every year everybody renews. Everybody comes in and they renew their membership, and they buy their class passes, and they do all of that. So it tapers off for everybody as the year goes on. We get, because the other thing too is those statistics are unique new individuals. Yeah. So once they're pretty much in for the rest of the year. They're not reflected in those statistics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember. Deputy Mayor Furtado.
And thank you, Director, for everything that you and your staff do for our senior citizens. I'm aging into that group rapidly, so I'm looking forward to working with you on as a client. One thing I'm wondering about is, I noticed that the mental health services that you provide are for Shoreline residents, and I'm wondering, do you see a demand from Lake Forest Park residents for that sort of thing? And are they disappointed when they find out they can't get it through the senior center?
Yes, it is universal. It is absolutely heartbreaking, to be honest with you, how many people that we have to turn away, because when they find out about it, they're so excited. And then we explain that it's because of, funding, that we have to limit it to what the funder says. Don't take it personally, City of Seattle or Shoreline, sorry. So it's pretty, yes, there just aren't enough resources out there at all. I can't say specifically because we did stop tracking because it got too depressing for our front desk staff to have to turn people away for the social worker in general, and then with the mental health as well. I mean, she's been booked out solid, and fortunately, we've been able to, the city of Shoreline is allowing us to extend the grant beyond the end of the year so that we can continue to use the funds until they run out into early 2027 because there's the demand. And I don't actually know what we're going to do when that ends because yeah. But yes, I would say in general, everybody needs to up their game to support older adults because they're coming for us.
Right. Well, thank you, and
So,
best wishes on that, yeah.
Council members, any other questions for Director Jones? Thank you so much for your time. We
there-
appreciate your report. You bet, please. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Emily. Nice to see you. Okay, we're moving on to Linda Finch from Shoreline Hangtime. Sir. We are. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Linda Finch, Recreation and Cultural Services Superintendent for the City of Shoreline. And I'm here to present the program that we offer as a joint partnership is called Hangtime, and it's offered through Kellogg Middle School. As you know, we share both cities, Shoreline and Lake Forest Park, share a school district. So this is a program that was developed years ago. Lake Forest Park stepped in and started helping to support the staffing and program costs in 2023, I think. Maybe it was earlier than that. It was before my time, let's just say. And I did not put this presentation together. It was actually our recreation specialist, Hayden, who runs the Hangtime program at Kellogg. So he did the photos, he does the statistics and the reports on a quarterly basis. He put this presentation together. There we go. So the programming that we offer at the City of Shoreline, Youth and Teen Development Program as a whole, we offer many different services. We have the Shoreline Teen Center, which is at Richmond Highlands Recreation Center. We have a Ballinger Homes off-site facility that we operate youth programming on Friday nights. And then we have school-based access. So we in the schools, both Shorewood and Shorecrest once a week, and we do noon hour activities. And we also have a mental health therapist that works with youth who come to both schools and work with our staff to provide those supports to students. We are offering programs in 6 different locations. And then, of course, the Hangtime program, so which is at Kellogg and Einstein, which is in Shoreline. So some of the things we want to highlight are the social skills that this offers our youth, the group games and physical activity, youth-led activities. We really encourage leadership among the youth who participate. And then we do some science projects and some group challenges for the youth to challenge themselves. We don't want it to be just a passive space where kids just hang out and stay on their phones. We want to create those really interactive activities. So social skills, again, we offer a variety of activities. We do provide screen time at the end of class usually, and this is Tuesdays and Thursdays, I should mention. It's registration, but we open up registration based on how many kids are generally attending. So we get a sense of kids sign up for the Tuesdays and Thursdays, but then if things happen, they have extracurricular, we open up space as we go along throughout the year. We want to encourage as many youth as possible to participate. So I think right now we're up to 40 students that are registered, and we get an average of 30 to 35 each day on those after school classes. So passive activities such as Lego and coloring for those who just want some quiet time. And then those who are a little more competitive, we have tournaments, we have chess, board games, badminton, and then a number of different sports that the kids, and they get to choose. A lot of times they'll say what activities they want to take part in on any given day. And so I mentioned some of the group activities. Even on the wet, rainy, cold days, the kids are outside. If it's too wet, too rainy, too cold, they'll create some activities inside, but we always encourage kids to get outside and get fresh air, release some of that energy that they have. At least 10 minutes of physical activity is what we encourage during our programs. which can be a lot for some kids. Some like more, but and then, as I mentioned, the youth-led activities is something that we're really encouraging them to let our staff know what they're interested in. We've done cooking classes. We've done some really unique science classes. One of the students wanted to do a science project, you know, basically creating slime, and created that activity themselves. So they kind of took over from staff. Staff were willing to lead it, and they said, "No, I got this." And they basically taught the peer students how to make slime. So they were the science teacher, which I thought was kind of great. And then I mentioned some of the STEM projects. This picture on the left, or sorry, on the right, is an epoxy resin that the students created, and then were able to design their own unique projects. The one on the left is using various materials to build structures to see how much weight or things like that they could actually build on structures using very flimsy material. It was really a challenge to see how much they could provide in a tower using you know, not blocks, but very creative in how they created those towers. And so basically the demand has increased over the past few years. As I mentioned, we started with 30 students. We've increased it to 35. We're now at 40. We're trying to get as many kids involved as we can. We track attendance. So even though someone's registered, we always have a wait list. We always check in to see if the students, it's all free, of course. So if the students drop off, they are not coming anymore, we'll open up a spot to somebody else who's on a wait list. So we're trying to encourage as many students as possible. We do give priority registration for teachers who have identified students who could really benefit from this program. Students who don't have a place to go after school, they're not interested in extracurricular, they're not interested in sports. This is a place for them to come. So we try to prioritize those youth, and we work with the teachers to identify who those students are. So overall, Hangtime is a place to explore activities, games, ideas, and other interests. It's a place to hang out and relax with friends after a hectic day, a place for participants to compete with their friends and release some energy, and a place that really allows participants to feel safe, heard, and accepted. And that's my presentation. It's just a summary of what Hangtime offers, but we value the contribution that Lake Forest Park provides. As you know, we share a school district, we share students from both Lake Forest Park and Shoreline, and we share some of our community partners, such as the Senior Center and ShoreLake Arts, and the Shoreline Historical Museum. Thank you for sharing the information about the book. So I love the partnerships that we have created between our two cities. But I'm here to answer any questions about Hangtime. I did put my contact information up there, as well as Amanda Zollner, who's our recreation supervisor, and it's her staff that lead the youth, teen, and development programs.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Finch. Friends, questions for, yes, please.
I don't know, maybe I missed it, but do you have a sense of how many of the students are from LFP?
They're about half. So we have 35 to 40 students. I would say 18 to 20 of them are Lake Forest Park. And we provide those reports to, you know, when we do our quarterly reports. And we do also regular attendance. So aside from the registrations, we are up to, at the end of the school year, we'll probably have served 2,000 students overall over the entire school year. And I would say half of them are Lake Forest Park.
Thank you, Councilmember. Deputy Mayor Furutani.
Hi, and thank you very much for your report. One of the things that I'm so heartened, and this is for all of our community partners, is how the community partners are partnering with each other on serving our community. And I think that's an amazing synergy that's going on. I'm wondering, so, you know, clearly, basically, there's an art component to the stuff that happens in Hangtime. Is there any thought of partnering with, say, our organization on working on some of these kinds of things in the schools, since, of course, the art organization is trying to get in the schools, as we've heard, so.
Yes, absolutely. Partnerships are so important, especially when our budgets are tight. So that's why we rely on our community partners, those with special skills, special unique access to people who can actually develop and run these programs. I think that's what's really important. Our staff are very creative, and they can offer different classes and different art programs. I will give an example about art projects specifically. Our teen center received a small grant from Foundry 10, and they really like to just give basic donations. So we were able to get art supplies and bring in an artist to teach kids. So we now have an art club at the teen center. I wish we had closer access to Lake Forest Park. Our teen center is in Shoreline, and people have asked, are you doing anything on the east side of Shoreline to serve the Lake Forest Park youth? We would love to look at that opportunity where we can expand our service area rather than just in the schools. So that's something we'll continue to look at. But the art club is an example where our staff are very creative in making connections with other organizations, get some funding, get some, even if it's just in-kind donations, art supplies, it goes a long way. And then just bringing in the expertise to teach those classes. So always looking for opportunities.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rosenau.
I have a graduating Kellogg middle schooler and a rising Kellogg middle schooler. So thank you for everything you're doing in the schools there. It's fantastic. I'm curious if are there any, you mentioned that there's a wait list and it's oversubscribed for how many people would like to be part of it. I'm wondering if there are any barriers that you're seeing outside the school within the city's domain that might make it harder for kids who would like to participate to be able to, or things that we can do better to
In
partner.
the schools themselves or outside of the schools?
I mean, our domain would be outside the school more
Yeah.
so, but are there things that we can be working
I
with
think
you or with the school district?
transportation is the biggest barrier, I think, because all of our programs are free. So if kids can get to the programs, we can serve them. And that's why we do some outreach programs. That's why we go to Bellinger Homes, which is the King County Housing Authority. We serve them on Fridays and do different events, community resource events. But transportation is the biggest one. And if we can figure out a way to have a community shuttle or something that takes kids to and from, I think ideally that would work. We are seeing a very high increase in demand in our services as well. We're doing all we can to meet that demand and meet that need. We're going into the schools a lot more than we used to. And that's something we've noticed is the schools have relied on us to develop those noon hour programs. So after school programs like Hangtime, and then the noon hour programs. Outside of the school, if we can provide transportation, that's a big one for us. And then what Emily was doing with the Battle of the Bands and the Listen Here events, I think that is really important for kids who have musical talents, who really want to express their artistic expression. So yeah, I think there's still plenty of opportunities out there. There are some barriers. Try to address those. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will also mention, I think also one of our community partners, Third Place Commons, is soliciting for a teen advisory council. So I'll throw that out to all of you.
Yes, that is actually great. We also have on our park board, we have 2 youth members. We just recruited 2 new youth members for the next school year. Having a youth voice is very important. And Third Place Commons just started joining our quarterly community partners meeting, as does Corey. She now attends. So it used to be Shoreline Partners. We've expanded that now into Lake Forest Park. So there's more capacity building that way. Yeah, open to any other suggestions that anyone has.
Thank you. Friends, any other questions? Thank you so much for the important work you do. And I have to make a note tonight. This is the first time we've had a slide about the viscosity of slime. So we thank you for that.
I'll make a note. Hayden will
It is very
appreciate
important
that.
for those younger teens. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
what
very much.
do. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we are moving on to the consent calendar. I'd entertain a motion for adoption.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for adoption of the consent calendar. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those signified by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. We're moving on to new business. Resolution 26-2089, authorizing the mayor, losing my voice here again, to sign a contract with Ventilation Power Cleaning Incorporated for stormwater system cleaning services. request to waive the three-touch rule for action tonight. Make a note of that, my friends. Welcome, Director Heaton. Thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Yeah, so this is a pretty standard contract to clean our catch basins. As you know, cleaning our catch basins is part of our NPDES permit. It is a requirement that the city must do. The city does not have a Vector truck or a place to store a Vector truck at this moment, or the money to buy a Vector truck. And so we must have a contract in order to clean our catch basins. There's not another way to do that at this moment. And so I'm asking that you approve this contract. Although this is a new contract, it is kind of a continuation of the work they did in December with the same company. They did all our inspections and identified which culverts needed to be cleaned, catch basins, sorry. And so I am asking that you waive the three-touch rule. The city is actually behind on our cleaning of the catch basins. We have already reached out to Department of Ecology, let them know, sorry, we're behind. We've had some staffing issues, but we will be doing it hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So that's why I'm asking you to waive the three-touch rule.
Colleagues, questions for Director Heaton? Mayor Furtani.
So, yeah, thanks for bringing this to our attention. And I guess the question I have is, you mentioned that this company has done work with the city before,
That is correct.
and did they do a reasonable job?
They did, absolutely. In fact, at the end of the year, I wasn't here, but at the end of the year, as I understand, they really kind of came quickly to our aid to get some work done for us in a quick deadline.
Colleagues, other questions for Director Heaton? Looking around the dais here. If not, I'd enter. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Good. I couldn't see your hand there.
Is it in the budget?
It is budgeted, yes, absolutely.
And is it within the budget amount?
It is. It's all within the budget as part of our regular NPDES work and stormwater cleaning.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rosenau.
I assume that we had a contract for this in the past. Different company, same company, different.
We've done it with several different companies. We've also used to work with King County more for some of these things as well. So.
Mayor Furtani, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I would. Okay. So, given basically the necessity of this work being done and as part of our requirement for the NPDES permit, I propose to basically waive the three-touch rule for resolution 26-2089, authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with Interlocal Power Cleaning Incorporated for stormwater system cleaning services.
Second.
Moved and seconded to waive the three-touch rule for resolution 26-2089, authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with Ventilation Power Cleaning Incorporated for stormwater cleaning services. Any questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor signal. I'm sorry, Councilman Bolden.
I'll support this with a small amount of heartburn, and that I completely recognize that this is a requirement. It's not all that controversial. Ideally, we'd have multiple touches on it. I also recognize there have been some personnel challenges involving NPDES, which is likely a contributing factor. So on balance, I will support waiving the three-touch rule, but it would be nice to have more advanced notice of these things that are coming up.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments? All those in favor of waiving the three-touch rule on resolution 26-2089, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yes. Guys have it to waive the three-touch rule on resolution 26-2089. Moving on, Deputy Mayor Furtani.
I'd like to move resolution 26-2089. We need to do that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
The three-touch rule waive. Do I hear a second? Second. So moved and seconded to adopt resolution 26-2089 with the three-touch rule waived. Any other further comments, colleagues? Hearing none, all those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? You guys have it. Thank you, colleagues. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very
Director
much.
Gates. This is important work to get done. Appreciate that. We're moving on to resolution 26-2090, authorizing the mayor to sign an amendment to the interlocal agreement with the Coalition of Small Police Agencies, CSPA, to approve the University of Washington Police Department's request to join CSPA. This is our first presentation. Chief Diego.
Good
Zanella.
evening. Hi.
Welcome.
So thank you for having me. And tonight I'm asking you guys, the council and the mayor, to basically approve the request from the University of Washington Police Department to be part of the CSPA, Coalition of Small Police Agencies. Probably you guys already know what this entity is, but it's basically a entity made by 12 agencies, small agencies, and we go from, of course, as Mercer Island, Enumclaw, Algona, Issaquah, Clyde Hill, Duval, Pacific, Snoqualmie, Medina, Normandy Park, and Black Diamond. So we share resources and we share training. This coalition was made in 2002, I believe. And so far, it was very, very efficient for us because, like I said, we share resources. For example, if a small city like, I don't know, Mercer Island has a homicide, everybody sends somebody. So officers, detectives, investigators go there and they can support that small department. And we do also training, like active shooter training. We do driving training together. So it works really well for us. The benefits of having the University of Washington Police Department with the CSPA are several reasons. Well, first of all, they are in Seattle. So it's really good for us because every month we go to a training or we go to a meeting. And so sometimes I have to drive to Algona or somebody from Pacific has to drive to Mercer Island. So it takes a long time. To have a centralized place like UWPD in Seattle would be great. And they have classrooms, they have conference rooms. The facility per se, it's a state-of-the-art facility. So it would be very, very good to have the University of Washington Police with us. They also have a mobile command post, which is basically an RV all ready to go if there is a major incident. So having that RV ready to go, it can be, of course, hopefully nothing will happen in our city, but if something happens, we can have a mobile command center arriving in, I don't know, an hour or so, and that will be extremely helpful for us. Personally, I think that it's also good because it's a campus police, which is different from a municipal police. So the 12 agencies are all small police agencies like us. And so having a different perspective, I think it's very good. And I'm saying this because for 2 years I worked there. I was the commander for the patrol units. So I know the dynamics that are different. And they have resources. For example, they have a K9 that are specialized in bomb detection. They don't detect narcotics. They don't chase bad guys. They are specialized in bombs and other weapons. So it would be nice to have this kind of resources. They have also large parking lots. And why are we interested in large parking lots? Because some of our training, especially the slow training, needs this huge thing. So instead of going down in Kent and once again, you drive for an hour before being at the training, you can just go to one of the parking lots. We did that before. It really worked well. And it will be ideal for us to have UW again. And of course, we will have more people, more detectives, more officers from UWPD helping us and helping the other 11 agencies to basically take care of situations that are extreme. So that's the reason why. The other 11 chiefs of police of the other agencies are all on the same page. We decided it would be a very good thing to have it, but now we have to have the approval from each city council and mayor. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief Zanella. Colleagues, questions for the chief? Yes, Councilmember Riddle.
So, so the UWPD will then be, I don't know, dues or whatever will cover kind of them, and it doesn't impact the amount that's being
Very
each
good
of the
question.
other cities.
Excellent
Correct?
question. So there's no financial burden for us or for any agency because it's all grants. So we are positive right now. I think we have around $177,000 available for any kind of incidents or training. And so there will be no financial implication for us or for any other entity.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleague, for the question. Councilor Rosenau.
Two questions. One of them just probably doesn't matter, but I assume it's the same department for you at Bothell, or is it only the Seattle
Only Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be just the main campus on 15
Mhm.
and both will be completely
It's
different.
different. Okay.
Yep, yep.
Vice Chair Goldman.
To follow up on that, so UW Bothell doesn't have a police force, and that the Seattle campus has a police force independent from the city of Seattle, whereas Bothell just uses the city of Bothell's police department.
Exactly. Yep.
Then the other.
Yeah.
Would this have, I know when there are graduations, when there are other big events, sometimes our PD is supporting does this affect any of that level of the arrangement, or is that separate from this?
It's completely different kind of collaboration because in the last 7 years, we provided a lot of times our officers to do events like graduation. We do a lot of sports events because, Huskies, the football, they need so many officers that they can't really handle that by themselves. So we provide our officers. We don't provide our officers for anything that is controversial or has a something political, or if we think that there will be some sort of protest or a riot, or if there is a speaker that is kind of, we don't know exactly how it's going to go, this thing, we don't send our officers. I talked to the previous chief several times about that. We were super happy to send our officers to any sports event, but no political events. We don't want any of our officers on social media, on TV, or injured. So we were like, no, we're not going to send. So it's completely different from a mutual aid if something happens like a homicide, for example.
Colleagues, other questions with Chief? Deputy Mayor Ferrantoni.
So to absolutely drive that point home, for instance, in the Palestinian protests that were at the UW campus last year, we would not have sent our police officers?
I love your question because it really happened. So the lieutenant from UWPD told us about this group, pro-Palestinian group, who was pretty much putting tents in the quad, right? And so they were like, probably we need more security. We don't know how it's going to be. Can you send some of your officers? And I was like, no, I'm sorry. We don't know how it's going to develop. And I don't want to be right in the middle of a riot or a protest or something violent with my officers. And they were like, totally understandable. That's fine. We just asked and we said, no, we are not going to send our officers. But there was the request, an official request from Lieutenant Jaros.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Final.
Councilor Riddle.
Have the other cities already approved this? Is that why you want us to kind of move quickly on it?
So I believe, let me think, 8 agencies already approved that. So we have the leftover waiting and having the discussion, but like all the chiefs of police approved, but 8 city council and mayors approved the resolution. So yeah, I don't really see the other 4 saying no because it's not really controversial, but you never know.
Yes.
Is there a time constraint for this?
Not really. I want to be honest with that. So I would like to have the approval tonight, but it's not something that it's important to have in the next week. And I totally understand if you want to wait to the 3-touch rule.
Another question along that line
Sure.
is there an overall date that it must be complete? All of the cities must agree by, is there a drop dead date?
Ideally it was before the end of August, but
Okay.
there is not a specific date that we have to abide for. So the sooner the better, but it's not really.
So if we approve, it might kick over the rest of them. Maybe.
Deputy Mayor Ferrantoni.
So I'd suggest to my colleagues, this might be an appropriate point to basically use our new rule about putting it on the consent agenda for next time. That gives basically our community time to comment if they have any comments. And of course, it can be pulled off the consent agenda if there are some strenuous objections.
Do you want to make?
Would you like to make a formal motion?
All right, I will make, okay. All right, I'm not even sure what to call this motion, but go ahead.
So I would move that we waive the 3-touch rule with respect to resolution 26-2090 in order to open discussion on it. And then the second motion will be to put it on the consent calendar for next time.
Got it. Okay, do I hear a
I
second?
second.
It's been moved and seconded to open, well, I guess it's to consider resolution 6209.
Waiving the three
No,
touch
for
rule.
the-
Yeah, waiving the
Waive
free
free
touch
touch
rule for discussion. I'm sorry. Any further discussion? Please.
So first, just a disclosure, since I am a University of Washington employee, I did discuss this with City Administrator Hill. I have no involvement with the UW PD. I have no governing authority over them, no financial interest. And so the determination was that this is not a conflict of interest for me to vote on this. With regards to the three touch rule, I like this as the compromise and that I don't think we should vote on it tonight if we don't have to. But it also doesn't seem controversial. So this way it gives us 2 weeks to think about it. So this seems like a reasonable approach.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Coleman. Any other comments? Okay, all of those in favor of waiving the three touch rule and putting it on the consent calendar.
Just waiving.
Waiving the three touch rule. It's a new process. Sorry, folks. It's gonna change is not my friend sometimes. All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you, Councilmember
So
Goldman.
now I will move that we place resolution 26-2090, authorizing the mayor to sign an amendment to the interlocal agreement with the Coalition of Small Police Agencies, et cetera. That we place that on the consent agenda for the July 23rd meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to waive the three touch rule with regards to
No, we did that. So this is just a motion.
just moving it to the consent calendar for next session, moving resolution 26-2090. You're gonna have to script this out for me, Larry. I'm gonna
A little laminated card.
yeah, I need like a
A
okay, next steps or an if then flow chart for me. Resolution 26-2090. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Guys have it. It'll be placed on consent calendar for next meeting, which is 23rd of this month, if I recall correctly. Thank you very much. Janelle. I appreciate your
Thank you,
work
Chief.
there. This is an important organization and they really do work incredibly cooperatively, shall we say. Okay, moving on to council member reports. Who would like to tee this one up? Deputy Mayor for tonight.
Right. Well, I'll start.
We're not quite do that.
So yes. So briefly, Sound City Association's PIC committee, the Public Issues Committee, met yesterday. And we did approve the letter to King County regarding solid waste utilities increase. Again, basically, it's hard for us to take a really strong position on it. So the strongest thing we got out of it was expressing our concern at the rate at which the increase is being implemented, and to have a second ratepayers summit sometime next year to basically discuss the aggregate effect of all the different utilities rate increases. The other thing that we talked about that was of interest is the affordable housing levy that King County is considering. They've convened a group of basically Seattle, a couple of members of the SCA, one of them being Bellevue's mayor, the other one being, I don't remember what there's another mayor from a small city. But the point is basically that there's going to be this group that's going to make a recommendation in November about whether King County should, or how King County should pursue its goals of getting affordable housing. And I think as far as I'm concerned, it's a capital A affordable kind of housing. And the point is that the recommendation may include a levy lift on their part. So we broke up into groups, talked amongst groups of cities about what should the priorities of such a thing be if there were funding for affordable housing. We came to the conclusion that every city has unique needs in terms of what their affordable housing is, whether it's preserving a mobile home park, whether it's basically expanding the growth management boundaries, whether it's basically like us trying to figure out within our context of a built-out city, whether there's a community land trust aspect that could work for ours. The point being that there wasn't a one-shot-fits-all kind of solution that was agreed on. And so consequently, it was really the question to the county of what are your goals? Because we want to see if our goals align with your goals. And are you the proper agency to be, issuing such a, thought about basically a potential levy? So there is basically a lot of fatigue on the part of taxpayers of having yet another levy. So we're cognizant of that. And so we went in there very cautiously. The comments are going to be relayed to the SCA board, and we'll move further from there towards the group. We've already got a couple of members on that group, as I was mentioning, that was convened to discuss this. So if you have thoughts about that, please send them to me and I can forward them on. Okay, and then I think. Yes, and the last thing was on the King County Transportation District, aka the County Council. As you know, they basically approved a 0.1% sales tax, and for starting next year, 12.5% of the funds are going to go back to the cities. And the nice thing that in it for us is that there's a $10,000 floor. So in other words, no matter how small your city is, and of course we are among one of the smaller cities, you can't get less than 10,000 from this this collection of sales tax. The unfortunate thing is that the 15% maximum was gotten rid of. So it means, and not shockingly, it was at the behest of Seattle. And so Seattle will probably get a significant amount of the funds, but nevertheless, we do basically get some money to improve our own roads from this new tax.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Colleagues, other council member reports. Councilmember Goldman.
Yes, the tree board met last night. They are still working on a tree giveaway for the fall. Spring and fall tend to be the best season or parts of the year for tree plantings. The thinking is that we will try to partner with an organization called 300 Trees. They've done giveaways in Bellevue and some other King County cities. But more, there's more that needs to be done behind the scenes to see if it's a good fit for us. Also, we got an update from Community Development Director Hoffman on that they're still planning. His office is still planning to bring a tree ordinance to council sometime, I'd say early fall. Focusing on some cleanup of the tree code, looking at the diameters for what makes an exceptional tree for various species. It's something that the tree board's been working on for quite some time, so they're excited to see that coming to council. Second update, I know at our previous meeting, we approved the letter to King County Metro. I've arranged, or I connected with King County Metro. They're going to send some people to our meeting on July 23rd to present on the upcoming fall service change. A bit of a misnomer because the fall service change is happening the last week of August, so a little earlier than fall. But they'll be here to present and to take questions about the change, which has already been approved, and so it'll be happening. But it's a good opportunity for us to present our letter to them. Also, on that note, if you are connecting with other cities or other organizations about the letter, if they're interested in signing on, probably the best way to do that is to have them reach out to our city clerk to officially sign on to the letter, and that way we can present the letter with all the signatories to Metro.
Thank you.
Point of order?
Yes.
So Deputy Chair Goldman, Ken Moore has it on their consent agenda for their Monday business meeting. Is that appropriate?
Yep, I think it's fine. And then once it's approved, that they can reach out to us to maybe the city clerk could explain what the process. I don't actually really fully know what the process is. Is it just they talk to you and then you put their names on?
Yes, if they just email me their information and the noticing that they want to be signed on to the letter, then I can take it from there.
Thank you. Councilmembers, good question.
In that regard, I will mention, I attended the Transit Riders Union Bus and Train Service Committee meeting and who voted that they would like to add their name to the letter as well. That was earlier this week.
Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, any other councilmember reports? Yes.
Yes, and thanks, Mr. Mayor. The weather report was for the Lake Ballinger Forum, which had actually more Lake Forest Park than any other city, I think. But that was wonderful to see. And we heard a report from I believe it was Linwood, talking about beaver dam removal, or basically at least mitigation. And they have some new exciting ways of doing it. I think might be appropriate for some of the stuff that we're trying to do at Grace Cole. So just basically a note out there for those of you following that controversy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And on point, we are There's been additional fencing that Public Works have provided, the group up there, as well as the signs have been installed about the beaver deceivers and some other things up there. And we'll keep working with the various groups to make sure that we do what we can to keep the flooding from happening, if at all possible. There's quite a contingent up there. I guess there's 6 now. So yeah, it's a pretty fascinating little ecosystem up in that place, in that wonderful environment up there. Any other council member?
Just
Councilmember Riddle.
more in beaver news. I did see online that there was a beaver happily working away in Lion Creek right by Swirl. So someone had a nice little short video of it pulling a branch down down the water creek. So
Yeah.
we have our own beavers also. So
Oh yes.
they are
There's
prolific and everywhere.
quite a few. We've got both the mountain and the aquatic ones. So okay. I'll be really brief. A couple things. The detour is going on right now for SR 104 and at 35th, as well as at 95th. I've been up there multiple times a day since it started, and it's going very, very well. I had some concerns. People are being relatively civil. We're having a few challenges with the stop sign, with lack of stoppage at 35th and 195th. Some people think that they deserve not to give their friends courtesy of a stop there, but and the stop sign was knocked down earlier this week. But it's going pretty well. This afternoon it was flowing very well. It's been flowing well during rush hour. My hat's off to the 2 officers that are on duty at all times that are from outside our agency, I believe. Yeah, actually, I'm certain they are, that are working for WashDOT and helping facilitate that. They're doing a great job in keeping things really moving. So I think it portends good things to come when we break ground on our roundabout as well. We're going to continue to make sure that the speed trailers are out there, traffic calming measures are in place, eyes and ears open, folks. You see something that needs correction, make sure it gets to the team. Let's see. 4th of July was relatively quiet this year. It wasn't too bad. Many thanks to the PD and for Public Works, the work that they did, both Sheridan Beach Club, Civic Club, Lion Creek Preserve, everyone was very safe and very few sirens that night, which is always a positive thing. I know there were some challenges in Kenmore and a couple other locations, but hopefully for the most part, it sounds like people were pretty safe. SCA board meetings coming up, and as Deputy Mayor Furtani, that meeting's next Wednesday down at Bellevue City Hall. The board's gonna be talking about a lot of topics, including the recommendations that PIC has brought to the board, sent to the board. And I want to give a shout out to the PIC and Deputy Furtani and our and the group that participates in that. It really sounds like that group has really hit its stride. So thank you for what you guys do. And it is not easy to get consensus amongst 37 disparate groups. So it's a big lift, and to find common dialogue and listen to each other and do it with civility is a really important thing. And it sounds like it's going really great. Let's see.
So
what
now
else.
that we got rid of awful.
They sort of self-selected, I think, actually. Unfortunately, I really hope they will come back to the fold. That they're an important member there. Let's see. Budget wise, we're going into budget season. We're in budget season, as you know now. And just as a note, the comment about fall, I noticed on the budget calendar it says we have fall recess in August. So I'm looking forward to fall coming early this year, I guess, as well. There have been a couple of interesting articles recently in the Seattle Times, if you've been following that, about civic matters. One is about the financial malaise that Clyde Hill and some other cities are finding themselves in. And reading those articles, it makes me thankful that we are in a much better position than most cities. However, the challenges are real, and so it is going to be a difficult budget season. There's just no 2 ways about it. You all are going to have some very hard decisions to make, as the staff will. I'm afraid that the word that's going to come out of my mouth for the next 2 months is going to be no, unfortunately. So I hope we can move past that and find some stability here in the future. I think that was pretty much it. We've already talked about animals. I've got to have a feel-good thing here. I was talking to someone that was saying that a family of deer is overnighting in their yard every day between 38th and 37th. So that's pretty cool right there by Brookside. And so keep an eye out for the deer. I have nothing else for you folks. Administrator Hill, anything you want to highlight in the
I'm just going to add on to the beaver talk. One of the things that we heard the other day is that they live in families of about 3 generations. So when you see 6 or more in one location, that's what you're seeing. We also did hear some interesting information out of Edmonds about, as you know, we've had trouble with the beaver deceivers, and they hear the noise, they feel the noise, they go and they plug up the fence around the beaver deceiver and make it less functional. They're doing some things in Edmonds where they're strategically removing sticks from the dam to a point where the water's passing through, but not making enough of a disturbance that the beavers are noticing. So maybe that'll be a solution for us. But anyway, it was actually a very interesting presentation.
Thank you. Administrator Hill, I thought you were going to say they were using CBD gummies on the beavers and stuff. Okay.
May I
Oh,
highlight?
yes, Councilmember.
Another item in the city administrator report is that Linwood Jail has increased their jail services rates.
Yep.
So as a continuing trend that we've been seeing, it's not letting up.
Okay. There's nothing else for the good of the order. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I saw that.
Wow.
It was what, 7 and 8%.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was what I wanted to do.
No,
But we-
Floating bag.
we go to different jails depending on